We have right now a good friend who is standing by from Washington, D.C., our good friend Jake Turx, who is not only an amazingly robust character out there, but he's also a senior White House correspondent for the very important Mishpacha magazine. And I'm going to interrupt the playback of the press conference to talk live with Jake from Washington, D.C. All right, wait a second. Jake, are you there?
I am right where you left me, Yishai.
So
First of
wonderful to
all,
have you, Jake.
it's great. It's great to see you and hear you feeling so well. You look like you're better than ever, and that's very important for us.
Well, I did go through a big surgery. You're right, and I'm Baruch Hashem healing. And one of the things that gives me strength is to broadcast. And I'm so glad that you joined me today. First thing, as we said, you're the senior White House correspondent for Mishpacha magazine. People don't know Mishpacha magazine is an ultra-Orthodox newspaper, very colorful. And you just had a cover story 2 weeks ago with Donald Trump. It said Seder Olami Chadash, a new world order. And you show a picture of Donald Trump with a hammer. And maybe folks I'll just show it from my phone here for a second. Okay, you can see it a little bit backwards there, but there it is. All right, that's your news story. And where are we catching you right now, Jake?
I am at a shared workspace about a block and a half from the White House. There's going to be a briefing in about an hour, so I'm going to be heading back shortly. But I'm always happy to take a few minutes for my good friend Yishai.
All right, Jake. So you were in. Were you at this White House press conference? Have you seen Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump? Have you seen it yourself?
Yeah, I was there, and what a press conference it was. Generally by these, sorry, I just got to adjust my tripod over here. It's not.
You're doing great.
It's
You're
not
doing
behaving.
great.
Thank you. I didn't say I'm not doing great. I was just blaming it all on the tripod over here. So usually by these joint press conferences, the president and prime minister each take two questions, and usually it's like predetermined who they're going to call on. But over here, Trump just kept on going, and he picked out like at least a dozen of us, and they got a little chaotic at times, but it was very interesting. It wasn't as combative as we've come to love from his first term. It's been a lot more respectful on both ends, and I think it kind of shows the shift in how media is covering Trump in his second term versus his first term and the 4 years in between.
Right. I guess it's more serious now. I guess people take him more seriously in that he won again, and he won with a powerful victory. So I guess that makes sense that the media is like, well, this is what America really wants. We got to listen to him. But
I'll tell you from the point of view of a lot of White House reporters, we spent 4 years getting almost zero access to Joe Biden, and the little access we got was very scripted. And so suddenly we're back to Trump, and he's doing a few of these informal press gaggles a day practically. I mean, before the press conference, he did two Oval Office gaggles where he just took questions. So he's been giving a lot more access this term than in his first term. But then when compared to the previous administration, it's night and day.
Wow. Okay. Now, Jake, because I'm post surgery, then last night, instead of staying up for the press conference, I went to sleep. I woke up early and started catching up on it. And listen, I was knocked off my seat with this innovative idea of America helping the Gazans leave, taking it over, rebuilding it, and cleaning it out of jihadism, rebuilding it, and creating this economic zone. You were there to hear it live. What was that like? What was that? Were you able to swallow that? Now I'm asking you both as a reporter and as a Jew. Were you able to like understand this and conceptualize it? Did it make sense to you, or was it just like, this is crazy talk?
As a reporter, and this is what I'm hearing from a lot of other reporters, there's this feeling that it could just be a negotiating tactic where he establishes goalposts at one end and then he hopes to meet you halfway. However, even if he does do that, that is assuming that the other side will negotiate in good faith. And we saw 7 years ago, like when Jerusalem was on the table, and the Palestinians did not play ball, Israel ended up getting everything, and the Palestinians ended up with nothing. So, in a sense, this is his way of taking an extreme position and kind of seeing how much he has to dial back, assuming there's someone to dial back with. As a Jew, not only did that not surprise me, but this is something I've been anticipating in a sense, based on what Amos says. The Avdu She'erit Philishtim Amar Hashem Elokim. That's chapter 1, I think, verse 7 or 8. And Vavdu is generally used as a word meaning, and they will be exiled. So he says that the surviving Philistine are going to be exiled from their land. And then in Obadiah, it says that the Yarshu Hashvela at the Plishtim, the Jews of the Shvela, are going to settle the lands of the Plishtim. So it's very clear that the prophets foresaw this. And so I was taken aback at how quickly things have been moving lately, but it's in the script. It's in Hashem's playbook.
Right. Okay. Hashem's playbook, God's playbook, that is, that I understand. But what about the idea that America would have a role in rebuilding Gaza and would, in a sense, help break the stalemate of what's the future of Gaza by getting involved? You know, I saw, and maybe you saw it as well, in Donald Trump's eyes, I saw not just a president, but a real estate developer. I saw a man who's like, I heard him say it a few days ago where he was like, it's beachfront property. It's got everything, but it's been turned into a hell.
Yeah.
I could see in his mind that there's like a place where he's like, I want to see this chunk of land developed and become something like the UAE, like the Riviera, like Singapore, like a reborn place. Did you see
Yes.
that as well?
Not only did I see that, but I also picked up those vibes from Steve Witkoff, the special envoy to the region. And he was kind of saying, this is a humanitarian thing. If you leave them where they're at right now, you know, they, like, buildings are in danger of collapse. There could be who knows what kind of disease. There's no, no infrastructure, no utilities. You can't leave a population to fend for themselves in those kind of settings. So he was saying the humanitarian thing would be to move them out of there, clean up the place, and then reintroduce them once everything's habitable. And he said that's not going to be for at least another 10, 15 years as they're projecting. And you know that when a government puts out such a projection, it's always longer and more costly than what they're assuming it's going to be. So he's saying, look, I mean, they got two choices. Either they work with us or they just live in this really dangerous existence. And then he said, if there was a U.S. city that had even 100th the destruction of what Gaza had, they would clear every person out of that city. So this is the point of view that they're approaching this humanitarian.
Right. There's a humanitarian side to this, no question about it. And just yesterday, Jake, I played a video of a Gazan Arab who made it so clear. He's just like, listen, just open the borders. We want out. Just give us the choice. There's another humanitarian principle, which is freedom of movement. I'm locked in this jail because the Egyptians won't let me in. The Jordanians won't let me in. The Gazans want me the Gazan Hamas wants me to stay here. Like, give me my freedom give me my choice. I'm just a human being. I want out of this thing. I don't want to play this game anymore. And it was just a very powerful message.
Yeah, I mean, if you're an elitist in Gaza for like $7,000, you can get into Egypt. So, I mean, God bless the elitists. If you're just a regular person who's been unemployed for the past 15 months, lost everything, you can't go in there even if you wanted to, even if they let you.
Right. Jake, I want you to just tell me the minute that you have to go. I'm going to keep you on for a little bit longer, but the minute you got to go, you just let me know. And don't worry about it. You could just, as we say, break the fourth wall, say, Yishai, I got to go, no problem. But in the meantime, I'll ask you another question, and that is, Prime Minister Netanyahu went to surgery about a month and a half ago. He had prostate surgery. We don't know exactly the extent. How did he look to you? I mean, he had this team around him, my friend Caroline Glick and Ron Dermer and others. Like what? And I saw Tzachi Hanegbi. I think I saw Minister Tzachi Hanegbi there.
Yes.
How did he look to you? I mean, he on the stage, he seemed to me like he was beaming. Like this was a real moment for him. Tell me the sense that you got from the Israeli delegation.
So as for Bibi himself, Like he looked like he was back to his old self. I've seen BB at the White House at least half a dozen times. He didn't look any different than any of the previous visits. Maybe he looked, a couple of years older just because of everything that he's been through emotionally, mentally. I don't know how much sleep he's been getting the past year and a half,
Right.
but otherwise, he appeared in fine form.
Mm-hmm. And the rest of the team?
The rest of the team, I mean, I'd love to have been a part of that team and to be a fly on that wall and hear how they were perceiving things. But aside from speculation, there's very little that I can add that they couldn't say so much better themselves.
Well, you know what? Let me tighten my question. Um, you know, it's in many ways one could put the blame of October 7th on the prime minister, right? I mean, he was the prime minister while this thing happened. He's the buck stops here. Okay, then he's fought a war for almost a year and a half, which has been on the one hand successful, on the other hand has not evicted the Hamas from Gaza. The hostages have not been totally liberated. There have been many successes, but I'm just counting some of the not yet successes. And then there was what many, including myself, saw as a horrible deal to get some hostages in return for horrible, bloodied hand terrorists. And so many people, even myself, was like, I don't know if this government is legitimate anymore. And I said to myself, he's got one last chance to redeem himself. If he goes to Washington and comes out with something normal, okay, this may be a redemptive moment for him. And I think I saw on that stage a smile that said, I think this is my redemptive moment. What do you think about those comments?
So one of the things that Witkoff was saying at a gaggle earlier the day is that they see this as an entry point that they expect will result in eventually all the hostages coming home, and they have to start from somewhere. The fact that this was Biden's plan, they felt like I guess it made more sense to take the existing plan that had already been negotiated over than to start something from scratch and take a chance that it would take a whole bunch of months for it to play out. So instead, they just went with what's practical. Look, we have a plan here. We're going to get back a few dozen hostages. We'll start from here, and then let's while this is playing out, let's figure out how to use the momentum to get the job done.
Right.
In a sense, if you remember the way the Afghan pullout of the Afghan withdrawal of U.S. troops played out, Biden also felt that he was kind of bound to the game plan that Trump had put in place. The difference being that by the Afghan withdrawal, the Biden team was not in touch with the outgoing Trump administration, and so they kind of were winging it. They didn't understand what the bigger picture was, and they messed up. Whereas over here, the Trump people came in saying, "Okay, we want to know everything you guys are discussing, and we want to work together with you." And so it led to this smooth transition. They're saying, "Look, this wasn't our idea, this wasn't our call, but we want the people out ASAP. We have to start somewhere." That's where we started.
Right, but that also came at a cost. It wasn't just a release of hostages; it was also a release of horrible terrorists and basically a cessation of the war so far. One of the things that's being bandied around here in Israel is that the war is going to start again, and we heard today Minister of the Treasury Bezalel Smotrich saying, "I'm glad I stayed in because I did the right thing," and he was kind of gloating over Minister Ben-Gvir, former Minister Ben-Gvir, who left the government and said, like, I can't be part of this deal. But now even Minister Ben-Gvir this morning said on Israeli radio, I think the time might be coming for me to come back in because I see that Prime Minister Netanyahu has secured a better potential deal than we understood when the hostage exchange for terrorist deal was initially announced. So there is a shift of consciousness here in Israel. Folks on the right are seeing that this is coming out better than they expected, because at first it was certainly a very unpleasant, bad tasting deal to see all these terrorists freed, not only freed into the world, but also freed into Israeli society, including murderers with 40 murdered Jews on their hands. So it was a rough moment. That's getting fixed today, I think.
I get the sense that Israel and Jews in general are still traumatized from the Gilad Shalit deal. Um, though sometimes we fail to take into account that we've learned a lot of lessons from the Shalit deal we didn't exactly know as clearly before the Shalit deal. Um, we're in a post October 7th world right now. So to assume that they're making the same mistakes, I don't think that's what's happening. If they're making other mistakes, perhaps. But essentially, I guess it's a question of, do you want to keep bombing tanks for 10 years, or do you want to say, hey, let's get whoever we can and let's see where that leads us? And so if the Trump administration's vision actually comes to fruition, and then eventually get back all the hostages, and then Gaza's cleared out of terrorists, all the tunnels are eliminated, and then nice housing is put in its place, and then slowly the peaceful Gazans are allowed to trickle back in, then I think you wouldn't be so disappointed about these 1,000, 2,000 released terrorists. It's the price you got to pay. Look at the bigger picture. The question is, if somewhere along the line this stalls, and then we got to go back to war, and now they have a few thousand new operatives on the ground. And let's also be clear about something. These people that have been freed, if you got a guy who's been in prison for 20, 30, 40 years, and he's been released exclusively because of the pressures that Hamas put. I mean, Hamas decides who should be on the lists. These people owe Hamas everything. They're not just going legit. They're not like a mafia guy who's cashing in all his poker chips and saying, "Okay, now I'm starting a legit car wash." You know, that doesn't happen. So these people are definitely back in the game. Whatever precautions you want to take, they're back in the game. So the question though is the game over?
Right. I've heard that, and I don't know if it's true. I heard a rumor that the Shabak has been, the Israeli security services has already been given an order to eliminate those terrorists. I don't know if it's true or not. But speaking of that, and here's my last question to you. One of the highlights of the war for Israel was the famous beeper attack, the beeper campaign, where beepers throughout South Lebanon held by Hezbollah blew up. Somehow Israel intercepted the purchases of beepers, new purchases, and they got to them first, loaded them with bombs, and it's something of storybooks. And all these Hezbollah fighters lost fingers, some were killed, lost eyes, all kinds of stuff like that. We saw videos of them injured, and it was a masterful attack, and it was also very pinpointed. It scared the Hezbollah. It hurt some of their leadership, and it showed the long arm of Israel. There have been news reports that Prime Minister Netanyahu handed President Trump a golden beeper,
Yeah.
and then a regular beeper as well. Did you hear that? Is that true?
I think we're seeing the same reports. It would make sense, and it would be such a boss move. Like there's no better move than that. I mean, who wouldn't want a gold beeper trophy? I mean, Hezbollah wouldn't, but I'm saying someone who's not Hezbollah. Like I'd love one. Hey, Vivi, if you're watching,
Yeah.
get me a beeper, please.
Jake Turx.
Thank you, Yishai. It's been fun.
Been fun to be with you. Not only
yes.
has it been fun to be with you, but very informative. And you are the senior White House correspondent for Mishpacha magazine, and all around a very cool yid. And I want to really thank you very much for joining us and for your awesomeness, and hope to have you on again soon. And thank you very much for reporting from Washington.
Thank you, Yishai, and maybe next time in person.
B'ezrat Hashem. God bless you, Jake Turx, and thank you very much for joining us. And he was live from Washington, D.C. He's going back now to cover more of the Trump-Netanyahu meetings, and that was awesome that we could have him.